all, my name is Cassie and I'm the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we're doing another challenge video, and this one we're going into pOpshelf, which I have never been inside one of these before, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of similar to like a Dollar Tree where everything is supposed to be pretty cheap, like in the $1 and lower range. So we'll see what we can find in here, but they're supposed to have some crafts in a section in there, so we'll see if we can get all of the tools and supplies that we need to make a project. But if we can't, I actually had a suggestion from a few of you to use like what I've used from previous challenge videos as like a backup if I can't find like a crochet hook or a needle, things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. But the limit that I'm gonna give myself is if I can't find like an alternative that I can make work. So like, for example, if it's like my first Dollar Tree video and there is a crochet hook, but it's a hair crochet hook, I still have to use that. But if there's no alternative and I would have to like whittle myself a crochet hook, probably won't do that. We'll just go with our alternatives there. So anyway, let's go ahead and get walking into the store and see what they have.
Hey guys, so here is the pOpshelf that I'm going into. This one was in College Station, Bryan area, and it was in a kind of weird strip mall. It was kind of off by itself. So here is the inside of the store. It's kind of like an upscale, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of like a CVS when I was walking in, just because of like the huge beauty section that you see right away, and then it goes into like cleaning supplies, hair care supplies, all of that. And in some ways it also reminded me of like Five and Below, because of like the central section of the store was all like kids toys, lots of squishies and things like that. And then on the right side here we were getting into the household section, which was like pet toys as well as like detergents and things like that. And there was a small grocery section in the back. But as you can see in the center here, lots of kids' toys, lots of different viral or trendy items. And then on this left side of the store, I found this small baby section, a party section, and then I found the craft section, which was pretty small, but it had a lot of diverse different tools and activities in this section, as you can see here. I was looking around for yarn and I finally found it. It was all shoved into this one shelf, and you can't even see all of the colors that they had available here because some of them were like pushed to the back behind some of these colors that we're seeing. So it looked like they had like 4 or 5 different colors, but they actually had more than that. And then I started looking to see if there was any more yarn selection or crochet hooks anywhere. I saw this cute little bead kit that you could probably use to make some cute stitch markers if you want. They also had some clay molding tools here, but I was still looking for a crochet hook and just hoping that I'd be able to find it. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find it. Here I found this $3 faux fur yarn that I ended up grabbing. It was just off by itself, not even on the yarn shelf. It was just like sitting on top of where like these ribbons here are. There were also some macrame craft cord in here, which was surprising. I started walking around the store in different sections to see if I could find something that I could use as a crochet hook. Here is the stationery section. There was lots of little kits here with like binder clips, paper clips, pins, things like that, but nothing in any of these kits that I could use as a crochet hook, unfortunately. I also looked in this hardware section to see if there was anything I could use, but I wasn't finding anything. A lot of these tools I was seeing were just like light fixtures, different sticky things to put on your wall. So I went back to the craft section and I started picking out the yarn I was gonna get. I settled for the faux fur yarn because that was definitely an outlier here that seemed really interesting. But then I was picking out yarn colors. I also spotted this kind of like felt kit tool that has like a bunch of different craft tools in it. Had some pipe cleaners and stuff, but I ended up putting that back. And then I saw these pipe cleaners that were up above that you could get in just like solid colors, not just like a assorted rainbow. So I put those in the back of my mind and then started looking for a alternative for safety eyes, and I found all of these different googly eyes. They had some glow in the dark ones, they had some googly eyes that were just like a bunch of different sizes. So I took those for right now, and I also grabbed some tacky glue for gluing the eyes on, and then I went back to picking some yarn colors that I could use. At this point, I think I decided that I wanted to try to attempt to make some sort of crochet flower using the pipe cleaners as the stem. So I was trying to find some good flower colors, and this is when I really started to dig through all of the layers of this yarn on this single shelf, and I found a green finally, which really set in stone that this flower idea was going to work. So I grabbed these green pipe cleaners, and then I started looking around the store for other things that I could potentially use, especially if I could find like a crochet kit somewhere. Then it occurred to me that I didn't have anything to use for stuffing an amigurumi plushie, so I went around the store trying to find a cheap stuffing option. These pillows were kind of expensive. They were like $10 each, $15 each, $20 each. I settled for this kind of checkerboard one, and then we were continuing to walk around the store to see if there was anything else that I could pick up, and my husband ended up grabbing a plushie from the baby section, which was actually half the price. It was like $5 instead of 10. So we ended up getting that instead. And then I came back to the craft section and I grabbed these lobster clamp hooks because I figured I could probably use these for keychains in the future. And then I almost took this bead set too because I was really wanting to make a stitch marker set in this project as well, but I couldn't find any clips for making a stitch marker like that small. I also stumbled upon these little tiny globes that were filled with different sized buttons, and I found this one that was like entirely blue buttons, which was really cute, and I figured if the googly eyes didn't work out, I could probably just use these buttons to use as safety eyes instead. Hey y'all, so we are back from pOpshelf with our haul here. I have never been to a pOpshelf before, so I was really surprised that they have these really cute like little paper bags here. This not so little paper bag actually, but I'm about to show you everything that I got. I have 2 projects in mind here, so let's go ahead and look through what I got and then we'll talk about the projects. So first off, for our stuffing, we picked up this little lamb knit animal plush because it was like the cheapest thing in the store that we could find to use for stuffing. They had like some bigger throw pillows that we could have gotten, but they were all like $10 and we didn't want to spend that much. I think I remember this one being $5, so a little bit on the pricier side in terms of these challenge videos and what we're usually looking at, so that was the main thing with this one here. Next up, I was looking in their yarn and craft section. It was really hard to find the yarn because it was all like tucked away in the most bottom shelf out of all of them, and you really had to dig through it because there were some colors that you couldn't see through there. The most obvious one that I found right off the bat was this skein of Lion brand, and it's called Go for Faux Sparkle, and so this is like a sparkly faux fur yarn. It was $3, and this is in the color Jupiter, so I was thinking maybe I could make like a little amigurumi plushie with this. Then for the other colors of yarn that I picked up, I got some very select colors from the range. I didn't pick up everything because I don't see myself using this any other time. It's Lion brand yarns, again, all of these colors are, and it's their DIY yarn, which is like a really cheap acrylic yarn, it seems. And these are skeins that are 1.05 ounces each. So I got this pink, this green, I got a yellow, I got a white, and a black. So the black I got for embroidering facial features, but these other 4 colors that I have here, I was thinking that I could probably crochet some flowers for the first time, hopefully. So in order to crochet those flowers, I need something like floral wire. So I ended up getting these chenille stems, like pipe cleaner things, so that I can make the flower stems with them, and obviously I had to pick up green just so that it's a little easier to disguise that it is a pipe cleaner, and hopefully I can get the yarn to wrap around this mostly. Next up, for safety eyes or some sort of alternative to that if the embroidery doesn't work, I also picked up these little buttons. This little thing right here was $3, so a little pricey for what it is, but there's a lot of different buttons in here of all different sizes, so I can see myself using these buttons for future projects as well, not only this project. So trying to be a little bit more logical about picking things that I will use in the future and not only for this video. Then to glue the yarn to the flower stems, I picked up some clear gel tacky glue. I noticed that they also had some tacky glue of a different brand that I've picked up from the Dollar Tree before, but that is part of like our tools catalog that we'll be using in this video for the things that we couldn't get at the store. So that's why I picked up this different glue here. It's also a bigger bottle and it's clear, so I was hoping that it might dry faster and be a little less obvious on those flower stems. And then finally, the last thing I got for this project are these little lobster clamp keychain things that we can possibly create keychains with the stuff that we have if we want to make like a smaller project. So overall, the only thing that we're missing here are obviously a crochet hook. Couldn't find that in the store. Couldn't find any yarn needles either. And then for scissors, I just have so many scissors already and I didn't want to buy another pair just for the challenge. So we're just going to have to use a pair of scissors from a previous challenge. Now, we are going to go ahead and get started crocheting now. So like I was saying, I have two project ideas. We're going to make an amigurumi project and a flower project where we're crocheting like a flower with a flower stem. And then potentially we can create like a smaller flower keychain as well. Hey guys, so I need to quickly grab some supplies from previous challenge videos. Specifically, I don't have scissors, no crochet hooks, and I don't have needles, and I potentially may need like things for embroidering. So I'm gonna pull open this drawer I have here now with previous supplies that I've worked with. All right, so got crochet hooks here. This is from a Dollar Tree video. I'm going to be using one of these. I don't know which one yet, but we've got a 4mm hook, a 4.5mm hook, and a 5mm hook. So I'm going to set these over here. We need scissors. I've got two pairs of scissors here. I'll grab these. And then we need a needle. And I've got this right here. This is a kit with just about everything I need. And we also have this embroidery floss here. I'm not going to grab it right now because I think I have plenty of acrylic yarn that I can embroider with. Yeah, I grabbed black and we've got some other basic colors. But I'm looking in my Pinterest board now to see if I can find a good flower pattern to crochet some crochet flowers. These would be the stems for my flowers. I'll obviously glue yarn around these, but it's a good thing that they're green because even if I miss a spot, you probably won't be able to tell. But yeah, I'm going to try to find a pattern, and then after that I'll try to find a pattern to use this brown yarn to see if I can crochet with that as well. It looks like it's going to be like crocheting blind basically based on how textured this yarn is. I know working with faux fur yarn is always really difficult, so we'll see how that goes. Alright guys, so for my first project I found this video tutorial on how to crochet a tulip. So I picked that and I was feeling pretty good about it. So I picked my main flower color to be yellow and I started by making one of these petals. Some of the things that I noticed was just that I was surprised that you crochet around the floral wire to create the flower, which makes a lot of sense because otherwise it would be really floppy. Another thing I want to mention is that this pattern calls for using, I think, like a 3mm hook, which is not what I have here. It might have even been smaller. I think it might have been like a 2.75mm hook, which is not what I have here. This is the smallest hook that I have, which is a 4mm hook. So that was definitely affecting the overall size and the gaps happening between the stitches. But the cool thing about this pattern is that it's just like step-by-step walkthrough with this video tutorial. It's really easy to follow, and they show you really slowly the more complicated steps, like putting this floral wire onto the petal and then crocheting around it and making sure it's attached afterwards. But it was pretty easy to do, having never done this kind of technique before. You do have to kind of slide the floral wire so that the point at the end of it where the petal is supposed to come to a point lines up properly, so that it is structurally supporting that petal and keeping it, you know, the right shape throughout the entire process of making this. So that was very easy. I imagine it would be even easier working with actual floral wire, because the chenille on these pipe cleaners was a little bit of a hassle, making it slide back and forth to get it in the right spot. So once I completed crocheting around the pipe cleaner, you're supposed to fasten off, and you're supposed to wrap your extra bit of yarn here around the stem, and you don't really like secure it in any way, which I thought was really interesting. So what I did was I just put it in between the two pipe cleaners, and I kind of twisted the pipe cleaners around the end so that it wouldn't come loose, and then I continued twisting the pipe cleaners so that they were just like fully together and it was all one piece. So this is how that looked when it was finished. And these are the smaller petals. There's 3 smaller petals, and then there's 3 larger petals. So I went ahead and finished the smaller petals off camera. Here's how those turned out. And then I proceeded to make the larger petals. After the larger petals are done, you're supposed to make a big old leaf, and it actually calls for a much larger piece of floral wire than I have, so I ended up twisting 2 pieces of pipe cleaner together at the end, and it was a little bit pointy at the tip of it where the leaf is at its point, so that was definitely something that I was not expecting. But here I am assembling the flower now. This glue was just not working out for me, and I suspected that the leftover glue that I have from the other Dollar Tree video probably won't work as well, because I remember having to glue safety eyes on one of my projects. Just was not working very well with that glue either. So what I ended up doing was I ended up twisting the green bit of the flower petal base around the stem, and then I layered the flower petals on just so that they looked nice. I didn't really follow the tutorial at this point because I figured what they were doing was going to look very different from what I'm ending up having to do to just make this work. So after putting all the petals in place the way that I wanted them to look, I took this extra bit of pipe cleaner and I just twisted it around those petals to keep them in place. It actually looked pretty nice and it was holding together very well, but it was much wider than I wanted it to be up top, so I kind of had to taper the flower stem so that the stem was wider at the top where all those petals were attached to the stem, and then slowly make it thinner as I went down. And twisting this pipe cleaner around the stem was just not a very fun process at all. Then to attach the leaf, I kind of did the same thing as I did with the flower petals. I just twisted those two pieces together with an extra piece of pipe cleaner, and it was not very pretty. I'm gonna say that. But after this was finished, this was basically the whole construction of the flower. If you're normally crocheting a flower, you would take your green yarn and you would glue it with hot glue all the way down the stem by wrapping it around the stem. But because I was using green pipe cleaners, that is something that I didn't have to do here. So next up, I took out the faux fur yarn to start working on our amigurumi pattern, and the pattern that I decided to start using is this free pattern by Nana Crochet and Lil's Lovies. This is actually a pattern that I tested myself, and it's a no-sew bunny pattern with overalls, so I thought this was a good challenge for me. I started by making the ears because you do that first in the pattern and you crochet them in later, and it was really difficult working with this yarn, especially with a stitch marker that is not a stitch marker, it's a safety pin. And I quickly began to realize upon making this first ear was that I was not going to have enough yarn to complete this project. By the time I was almost done the first ear, I was almost halfway through my yarn, so I ended up going with this no-sew chunky bear pattern by Nooks Hooks instead, that I recently tried in a free pattern review video. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already, but here I am making that. It's really easy to crochet. It works up really quickly as well, which was another plus for working with such challenging yarn. Working with this yarn, you really just have to be able to feel where the stitches are, especially because you can't really see any of the stitches as you work. The faux fur kind of blocks all of it, so you have to really feel around with your fingers to find where you're supposed to crochet into next. I will say that I was not a huge fan of what this was coming out looking like. I was trying so hard to trust the process, but it honestly just looked like a big old dust bunny to me. The color isn't super flattering, and all of the gold flecks in the fur just kind of look like, I don't know, like dried up stains in the fur, so it wasn't looking very flattering, and I wasn't really happy with what it was coming out looking like. But I decided, you know, I gotta see this through to the end and see how it comes out looking like. Here is the finished body and head section. It's all worked in one piece, really easy to follow this pattern. Can't stress enough how much I recommend you try this pattern. But now we have to embroider some eyes on. I don't know why I didn't decide to just use buttons. to sew those buttons on. I feel like that would have been so much easier than embroidering these eyes on, especially with the needles that I was working with. They were way too small for this project, and it was so hard to get them through to the other side of where I was pulling the needle through. Not only because the needle was just too small, but because when you're working with needles that have pointed ends with like yarn like this, it's really easy to get caught in like the middle of a strand instead of in between two strands of yarn. So it was making it really difficult to pull through when I was embroidering these eyes. Also, because I was working with faux fur yarn plus acrylic yarn to embroider the eyes, I had to do so many little bits of embroidery here to make these eyes really stand out among all of that fur. And then afterwards, I didn't show this part because I was just so focused on getting these eyes embroidered that I had to do the second one off camera. It was just so much of a pain to do the first one. But as I was saying, it was really hard to get these to stand out, so what I had to do after embroidering each eye is I just like trimmed the fur around the eyes so that the fur didn't like get in front of the eye and make it a little muddled and not as easy to see. So here is what those eyes looked like after they were finished. I did a little bit of white embroidery in the center to give it a little bit of a shiny effect, and I also embroidered a nose between the eyes. But after that, you crochet the ears directly into the head, and it's really, really easy to do. And then after that, you can also do some face shaping, which I believe I ended up doing just because it was looking a little round, but it looks like I did that off camera. Hey y'all, so I have finished crocheting for the pOpshelf challenge, and I've got two projects here for you. One, I wanted to do a crocheted flower for the first time, so just take that as you will, because it seriously has been my first time crocheting like a flower, using like, you're supposed to use floral wire, but instead I used pipe cleaners that I got from pOpshelf. So that being said, it's very floppy and sad. Another thing that I want to mention really quickly is that you're supposed to wrap your yarn around the flower stem, and you're also supposed to glue all of those pieces to the flower stem piece or the floral wire that you use. But the glue that I chose was just not drying fast enough to hold anything in place. So what I ended up doing was I wrapped the pipe cleaners around the stem that I chose, and that was how I attached everything here. So this is by no means the way it's supposed to look, nor is it supposed to be this floppy or anything like that. That is just because of the way that I ended up assembling it. Another thing that I want to mention about this flower that is also left out is because I wasn't working with floral wire, you're supposed to have like some sort of taut thing. I don't know if it's supposed to be floral wire as well, just like in a different color, or what it's supposed to be, but there's supposed to be like little yellow strings in the center of this flower to like kind of have those little, I don't know what those are called, but the bit on the inside of the flowers that
pollinators actually pollinate and get their pollen from, and the nectar from. That was also left out because it would just be like some string that I fastened in there, and it would be really floppy and weird looking. So I just chose to leave that out entirely, but it's decent looking for my first crochet flower given the circumstances in which I crocheted this. But this made me really inspired to maybe make more crochet flowers in the future, maybe picking up some milk cotton yarn as well as floral wire to actually make flowers for real for markets, because I hear that they're super popular. So let me know in the comment section if you make floral crochet flowers for your markets, and if they do really well or not, because I've seen a lot of people like recommend to me making crochet flowers, and I've also seen like places like Hobby Lobby sell crocheted flowers now, like you can build your own bouquet, but they're probably not ethically made because of how cheap priced they are. So just let me know what you think, if you sell them, all of that. And my second project, I was working with that faux fur yarn, and this is what I ended up making. It kind of reminds me of like an Ewok, but it is the Chonky No-Sew Bear pattern by Nooks Hooks. It's a free pattern on Instagram if you're interested in it. I rated it 5 stars in my last free pattern review video, so check that out if you haven't already as well. It has lots of different market prep friendly patterns that I reviewed in that video. And so yeah, it looks very different than those bears did in that video. Obviously, it's going to look different no matter what the pattern is when you work in faux fur yarn. But something I want to mention is just that I started working up a no-sew bunny pattern, but decided that I was probably not going to have enough yarn to finish it. So that's why I went ahead and frogged that and then made this one instead. So came out pretty cute. I did have to do a little bit of trimming around all of the spots that I embroidered, because otherwise I think it wouldn't look as crisp, like all the lines that I made with the embroidery. So that is why I chose just to do a little bit trimming there. So yeah, let me know in the comment section which one of these projects you prefer, if you like the bear or if you like the flower more, and which one of these patterns you're going to try out for yourself. I didn't mention this, but the flower pattern is also free. It's a free YouTube tutorial that I found off of Pinterest to make these little tulip flowers. Mine looks a lot different from the pattern designer's tulips, but I think that's mostly just because of the hook size that I chose, as well as not using the right type of wire to assemble the flowers. But anyway, I enjoyed doing this project for you guys. If you have a store suggestion you want to leave in the comment section, let me know. I've gone to Target, Dollar Tree, Ollie's, and now pOpshelf, and I know there's plenty of other stores out there that I can try as well. Just keep in mind that I do live in East Texas, and some stores that I see recommended sometimes are not in Texas at all, or in my area at all. So just keep that in mind when giving your recommendations of places that would make sense for me to go to, that I wouldn't have to do like a whole road trip for. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!